And now we're going to do the biggest test of all. We're going to be testing all the settings at once. In our testing model, we have answers for most of the tests that we've done so far, and there is the remaining one which is doing all for the tests at the same time. So testing the MA, testing the targets and stops, testing the day of the time of the day, and then the day of the week, all in one process. So we go into the Magic MA's input screen for the EA, and the first thing we do is go to the testing tab and make sure that the genetic algorithm is ticked, because we are going to have such a huge amount of alternatives that we're going to need this genetic algorithm to select the areas to be tested most. We then go to inputs and we literally tick all the inputs that we have tested previously. Take profit, stop loss and trailing stop. So I've ticked all the inputs that we have. We're not going to test for lots, we're not going to test for minutes, and we're not going to worry about trailing stop steps. So we say yes, okay, and we tick optimization, and we make sure that that setting is no longer on ticks but on open prices. Okay, so let's start this process. It should take quite a long time, although the algorithm does help in shortening the time considerably. So let's have a look at what the test looks like once we've started it. Okay, I mean, we're talking about 7,900 million options, a huge amount. So the algorithm brings it down to about 10,000 items, and it is running away at the moment. It's already done 16 items. So what we're going to do is we're just going to leave this for a while and see how it goes, and I will restart the video once this is complete. Right, the test is finally finished. It didn't take as long as I thought. It was just about an hour. It did 8,448 tests out of 7,900 million, so difficult to tell how representative that is, but let's have a look at the results of that test. So the results are quite a bit higher, about 30% higher than what we have with our step-based testing, and the top test there is 1,772. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load that one in, and we're going to do a few different things than we did before. I'm going to load that one in to our EA so that we can read it a little bit easier. So essentially what it says is don't trade on Mondays and Saturdays. Mondays are generally low volatility days, so that makes sense, and the rest of the days we can trade. It also says trade from 11 o'clock to 4 o'clock, to 11 o'clock to yes, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So 11 o'clock AM to 4 o'clock PM, and that's essentially UK morning to just after the open of the US session. So it's about 2 or 3 hours after the open of the US session. It's about an hour before the open, or an hour after the open of the Euro session. Interesting times that it's come up with. The MA that it's come up with was 450 offset by 600, which is a fairly balanced setting. Take profit 300 and a stop loss of 100, and then a trailing stop of 170. Not quite interesting to compare those settings with the settings that we've come up with, and I think that's about all. Now I'm going to save this one as total test, see if there's nothing similar, total test, and I'm going to call it positive, because what I'm going to do too is I'm going to load the most negative result. So we've saved that, and we can now go OK, and I'm going to look for the most negative result. So we go right to the bottom and we find the most negative amount, and we put that into the EA. So let's have a look at what the most negative. The most negative result is saying trade every day except on a Saturday. So it's not too different from the most positive one, except it says that you have to trade on a Monday too. Trading takes place right from the whole day, from 0 to just before midnight. So you trade the whole day. You trade with ridiculously fast MAs and set-offs, so that's the fastest you can trade, and that makes sense because that's really too fast for a 15-minute chart. It's way too fast. No wonder it's the most negative one. The take profit is 50, very small amount, and the loss is 50, and the trailing stop is 50. So those actually don't make sense much, but you can see why this is the biggest losing setting. So I'm going to actually save that as total test negative. All right, and I'm going to save that. So immediately we get a feeling that the lower the moving averages at a period is and the lower the offsets are, the more likely you are to run into losses. If you trade the whole day, you're likely to run into losses. And if you trade essentially the whole every day of the week, you're going to run into losses. So that's more or less what we came up with, is that the moving average system on its own is not a profitable system. I'm going to have a look at the results in a little bit more detail. So we're learning a lot from this particular test. So let's have a look. I'm right at the bottom amongst all the most negative results, and essentially let's see what we can come up with. Let's look at the moving average settings. So you can see all of the most negative ones are very low moving average settings. So we've got a pattern that's developed here. It basically is telling us, please do not use low moving average amounts. You need to leave, and if we look at the most positive ones at the same time, you need to use settings that are above 450. If you go through the most positive ones, all of them are above 450, it looks like, yeah. All right, so we're learning quite a lot from this particular test. Let's have a look at the offsets, if they make a difference. All right, so the offsets too, the most negative ones have got very low offsets, very low. There we go. There's the first time we've hit one with a reasonable offset, but the rest are all extremely low. So the message that I get here is, do not use low offsets. Let's go and look at the most positive results. Offsets. Oh, 600. Down 500. There's nothing under 500 so far. Nothing under 500. All the way down. So again, the message is moving averages should be above 400. Offset should be above 500. Now let's have a look at the optimization graph and set that up for moving average period and moving average offset. Okay, so clearly there in the middle there is where most of the profitability lies, right in the middle of the chart, which is exactly what we saw by doing our analysis. It says you have to have moving average balances over 450, and 450 seems to be the dividing line. After that, profitability improves, and you have to have offsets of over 500, and there we go. Look at that. So what we've seen in the numbers is again coming through in the graph that we look at. So let's have a look at some other combinations that might be interesting. It's basically saying let's do the server hour from and the server hour to. All right, now we're starting to get some really interesting information. This is clearly saying that block is the most profitable time to trade the moving average crossover system. And when you use that block, you've got to trade after 7 o'clock in the morning and if you trade past past 11 or 12 o'clock, you are wasting your time. So what it's actually saying is that the UK morning is not the UK, I would say the European morning, because this time includes Frankfurt being open and a few other places being open. So the European morning is the most profitable time to trade the moving average system. So we're actually learning a huge amount from this detailed test. Let's have a look if there's any other combinations. So we've got a very good feel of what our settings should be in terms of the moving average period and the moving average offset. We've also got a very good feel of what the times are that we have to. And in fact, I'm going to save this. How you save this is you can go to your optimization results, click on your results, save as report, and it will, and then we'll say this is the total, and it is also the time of day. And then we go save. It will then save it for us and bring it through on our browser, and you can actually see it in the browser. And if we want to do the previous one, we can do the same thing, and let's just do that. MA period, MA offset, and again we want to see that number there, and we go boom, save report, and you again get total MA settings. Well, I'm just giving them very vague names at the moment, and there it's come through on my browser. And you can go and get it at the address that it's saving it, and there is the clump that we were looking for. So a lot of information coming through, but certainly very clear information. Trade the moving average mainly in the European market, and also use settings over 450 and 500 for the offset. Let's see if we can find some more information from these graphs. I won't be able to do the days. What would be interesting would be the take profit and the take profit and the stop loss. This clearly also says if you're going to use a take profit, it must be over 200, or preferably 250 or 300. So that is the area where the take profit is the strongest, and it does not actually matter that much what your stop loss is. It makes in fact, the biggest stop losses don't help. So you need a stop loss in this particular area around about 150 or even 100 stop loss would be. So again, we're getting a really good idea of. So let's just say total target and stop loss. Now I can find these reports at any time. So there it's brought it through in the browser. Okay, I hope you found this particular test interesting. I think it's probably the most interesting test that has happened. It only ran for, it looks like 55 minutes. So to do 8,000 tests in 50, and by the way, I'm working on a little laptop. It's not the most fancy machine that there is. I'm working on a Dell laptop. With it does have, I think, 4 processors though, so it is a little bit stronger, and it has got 16 RAM, so you can get quite a lot of testing done on a laptop. All right, we're going to be looking at even getting better results in the next few lectures to follow, and making best use of these optimized results that we've already achieved. So I look forward to the next lecture.